Hello everyone and welcome to the Ticker.com's news channel on YouTube. On this channel, we review stock markets and discuss financial news, market trends, and economic data from Wall Street to Global Street. So let's get started. Stock market indices around the world closed down as global and regional events dominated. U.S. major averages dropped after Fed Chair Jay Powell signaled lack of urgency for future rate cuts. In addition, post-U.S. elections rally wavered in the second week after the reality of chaotic administration, unhinged presidential leadership, and extreme tariff policy agenda began to set in. U.S. consumer price inflation edged slightly higher in October, indicating that the Federal Reserve may not be in a hurry to raise rates at the next meeting in December. Core consumer price inflation, which excludes food and energy, stayed above 3% as the prices in the service sector continue to advance. The hard reality of core inflation is that the Fed is not capable of lowering inflation to 2% in the near future because businesses are still raising prices at every opportunity they can. Retail sales rose 2.8% from a year ago in October, following an upwardly revised 2% in the previous month. The retail sales data are not adjusted for inflation, so that means the consumption after adjusting for inflation in real terms is going down. Retail sales rose 0.4% from the previous month, driven by an increase of 2.3% in electronics and appliance stores and 1.9% in auto dealers. India's consumer price inflation rebounded to over 6% in October amid rising food prices, and weaker rupee also contributed to higher imported energy costs. Inflation rose to a 14-month high. We now review other economic news around the world. The Eurozone's industrial production declined 2.8% from a year ago, and third-quarter GDP growth was confirmed at an annual rate of 0.9%. China's retail sales accelerated in October, but new home prices across 70 largest cities declined for the 16th month in a row in October. Weak consumer price inflation in October also confirmed the ongoing demand weakness in China as urban unemployment remains elevated. Japan's economy barely expanded in the third quarter from the previous quarter amid the yen's weakness as large businesses continue to avoid investing in the domestic economy. Let us review key events in global bond, currency, and commodity markets last week. The yield on the 10-year U.S. Treasury edged higher to 4.45% and hovered near a 5-month high as investors factored in fewer rate cuts than previously estimated. Crude oil prices declined 4% towards $68 a barrel and halted a 3-week rally after the IEA, International Energy Agency, estimated surplus conditions next year amid falling demand growth and rising global supply. Natural gas prices in Europe rose to a 2-year high of €45 per megawatt hour due to colder weather conditions combined with weak wind power production. The euro hovered near a 3-month low of $1.06 after Germany set a general election date for next February and the resurgent dollar following the U.S. elections last week. The Japanese yen stabilized above 154 yen against the dollar after Japan's GDP showed anemic growth in the third quarter and political uncertainty surrounding the ruling coalition persisted. We now shift our attention to major stock markets in the U.S., Europe, and Asia. The S&P 500 index and the Nasdaq Composite fell around 2% after Fed Chair lowered expectations for imminent future rate cuts, citing economic strength and post-election enthusiasm waned. European markets extended losses for the 4th week in a row amid worries about rising trade tensions with the U.S. and China, and the potential higher burden of costs to support the NATO's military activities in Ukraine. The Nikkei 225 stock average resumed its downward slide amid persistent weakness in the yen and policy uncertainty and political instability. Hong Kong and China indices dropped after Beijing stimulus measures fell short of expectations. The positive data on new home prices and retail sales last month trimmed the weekly losses. Indian market indices, after festival season sales fell short of expectations, contributed to the dampened hopes of rate cuts in the near future. Let us shift our attention to merger deals, market movers, and earnings update from leading companies last week. Home Depot reported higher sales driven by a rise in seasonal demand and incremental sales related to hurricane demand. Walt Disney lifted its earnings outlook as the streaming unit posted gains and the company targeted $3 billion in stock repurchases in fiscal year 2025. Applied Materials dropped 9% after the chip equipment maker reported better than expected quarterly results. Company's current quarter sales outlook fell short of expectations. Cisco Systems, the networking gear maker, reported better than expected quarterly results and lifted its annual outlook, but revenue declined for the fourth quarter in a row. Evotech soared 18% after the German drug discovery and development company received a €2 billion acquisition offer from Halozyme Therapeutics. Alstom jumped 8% after the French mobility company reported higher than expected cash in its interim results, driven by rising sales volume and cost savings initiatives. The Italian insurance company Generali reported better than expected 9-month profit despite a €930 million charge linked to natural disasters. Burberry Group jumped 19% after the company's recently appointed chief executive pledged to stabilize the business with a turnaround plan. Premier Foods reported higher sales and earnings in the first half amid rising demand for its food brands in the UK. Alibaba Group, the China-based e-commerce platform operator, reported weaker than expected sales in the first fiscal second quarter. Tencent Holding, the world's largest video game company and operator of the WeChat messaging platform, said third quarter revenue increased 8% to $23.9 billion and net income jumped 33% to $8.7 billion. In the week ahead, private survey of the U.S. manufacturing sector is expected to confirm an ongoing contraction, but growth in the service sector is likely to pick up. In addition, investors are looking forward to the release of housing building permits, starts, and completion data. On the earnings front, NVIDIA, Palo Alto Networks, Walmart, Lowe's, and TJX are among some of the leading companies expected to show better than expected quarterly results next week. In Europe, manufacturing surveys are awaited in the Eurozone, France, Germany, and the UK. Moreover, Switzerland and Spain are set to release their international trade data. China is set to announce its loan prime rates, and ministries in Japan are expected to release updates on inflation, trade balance, and manufacturing sector surveys. You can review daily U.S. and global financial market news, stock movers, earnings releases, regulatory filings, and economic updates on ticker.com and 123jump.com. You can find the latest financial books on Rodera.com, keep up with financial industry events on eventsinamerica.com, review ETF and mutual fund performance and in-depth profiles on tickerfunds.com, and review market updates and stock movers in India on niveshak.in. That is all for today, and we will see you next week.